Hey y'all, this Tay Rudy, and I just want to get up here and talk about white supremacists and Karens. I did want to talk about white people and their history since they've been up on Earth. If you look at white people's history since they've been up on Earth, it hasn't been good. From their great granddaddy selling away from the European and going across the world and colorizing it and making everything white look better and everything darker look bad. It's just sad to a certain extent to see white people's attitudes that they still continue to hold that their great granddaddies gave to them years ago. And it's sad to see the way that they keep treating people of color, especially here in America. If you look at the African American community and if you look at the Latino community, especially Mexicans, the way that they treat them though too is wrong. You know, even until this day, you have a lot of white folks still teach their kids not to date blacks. Like black people have done anything to them. We ain't doing nothing to them at all. Only thing black people have done was come over here and built the whole country for almost 300 plus years and got paid not a dime. And it's just sad to a certain extent to see the hate that white people keep in the inside of them and the way that they treat people of color. They do. White folks also too, they have this whole image in their heads with black people, like black people done did something to them. If anybody ought to be discriminating towards anybody, it should be us with them. They done killed us, they done hung us, they sold us for almost 300 plus years. And like I say, our ancestors worked and worked and worked, and even into this day, they never got a dime or land. That's why black people lack so much wealth here in America, and that's why white people are such ahead of them. And of course, you got poor white people. I'm not sitting up here saying that all white people have wealth, because they don't. And a lot of them have lost that wealth up over time that their great-grandparents collected during slavery. They don't lost land and money. But it's just sad the way that we've been treated since we've been up over here. And also, though, to discriminate against us. They kept us up out of schools, hospitals, jobs, restaurants, you name it. Even if you go back to the 60s, how violent they was. They were so violent with our ancestors and with our great-grandparents when they tried to integrate with them. They just didn't want to be around them. You got to think white folks are programmed with so much hate in them that sometimes it's just sad to even look at it. It is. And it's sad to say, for all those many years that we tried to integrate with ourselves, I think black folks is moving past that. I truly do. You don't see too many of these current black kids just trying to integrate themselves in with whites because they know which way they operate. They know that a lot of white folks, even to this day, still teach their kids not to date blacks and the way they speak and talk about us. But it's all good. God has his day, and God will have his way with them, especially the ones that won't strain up. They will. And if you look at white folks, though, too, they facing judgment. You keep seeing these little white kids dating blacks. You keep seeing them into rap, sports, all this stuff. They so heavy into black culture that it's just funny to look at it, much as hate as they teach their kids. But one thing, though, too, with black people got to educate themselves. They got to educate themselves up on their African history, and they got to also, too, educate themselves up on their African American history, because it's so many things that we done did here that a lot of black people don't know about. The White House was built off the back of black men. It was. And a lot of black people don't even know that. It's so much hidden history. It is so much hidden history. And it's sad to say, though, too, those school books don't teach those kids that much. It truly don't. It teach everything of white supremacist way, and a white man did it, which is not true. Got nothing but history with African American in now. And it's sad a lot of blacks are not that educated up on that. And it's sad, though, too, just to see these white women. You got so many white women down history. If you go back to almost 60s, 70s, and 80 years ago and see the history that they've done and some of the lies they told up on black men. They got black men locked up in jail for years. They did. And you also, too, got a lot of white people that have killed a lot of black people up over time. And it's sad to say a lot of them still walking around here. Just like that lady that lied up on Emmett Till. That lady's still around here living her life comfortably with husband and kids, while Emmett Till's life was cut short at 14. It was. If Emmett Till was alive, Emmett Till would be almost 79 years old. He would, because his birthday just passed. He will be a year younger than John Lewis, who just passed away. Now let that sink in. And when white folks see these cops killing and shooting these black men, especially the ones that have done things to black people almost 40 or 50 years ago, they suffer from guilt. A lot of whites really do. They know which way they talk about us, and they know which way that they preach about us. They do. So when they seeing all this stuff going on, like these cops shooting and killing these black men, it get to them to a certain extent. And like I say, white people have a image in their head of us hurting them. Black people have no history of murdering and killing and lynching and raping and beating and selling them for almost 300 years. And also to discriminate against them, constantly keeping them up out of restaurant jobs, doctor's office and things like that. We have no history of that. But, you know, a lot of whites feel like that. And I guess, though, too, to a certain extent, they have to think like that to keep the guilt from them. Because a lot of them know the way that they speak of us and look at us. They do. And another thing, though, too, white women. Like I just was speaking up on white women, Karens. You got so many white women, if you look back at history, that have lied up on black men. Tried to say black men tried to sexually assault them. Or claim that a black man was staring at them. And you got a lot of them that done got away with it, if you go back in history. And you got a lot of them, though, too. They got a lot of black men sent in jail for false accusations, especially dealing with some of them. You got a lot of white women that was sneaking around with black men, and they got mad at them, and they would call the cops or lie up on them to their dads that got them killed or locked up. You know, it's just sad to a certain extent. And I think, though, too, sometimes when people look at black men with white women, they think to themselves, why would you want to be with somebody that tell lies? Why would you want to be around people that have murdered so many black people and brown-looking people? It's like they don't get it. But I do to a certain extent. Not all white people are bad. Not all white men or white women are bad. They are not. It's just the way that they was raised and what's programmed in the inside of them. And like I say, you got a lot of racist white women. You truly do. Just as well, you got a lot of racist white men. You may see white men carry more hatred views towards blacks than white women. And some people may say it's equal. It is, but not all of them bad. And it's like this: love is love. All of us come from God, and all of us will go back to God. You know, even though the world did start off with a black man and black woman, it did. In Africa, all history is in Africa. Only thing messed Africa up when they colonized it, they did. A bunch of white men, like I say, sailed from the European into Asia, India, and over here in America and colonized it. It took a lot of history away from black people. But black people know they're great, especially the black community here in America. You know, it's just important to educate ourselves upon our history. Because it's like this, the white school system not going to do it. They not. It's too much racism and too much white supremacists that still lays in there. And another thing, though, too, school teachers. You got a lot of racist school teachers up there. You do. I didn't say all of them, but a lot of them you do. Got a lot of prejudice and hateful white teachers up there, especially towards black boys, the way that they do them. I read up online one time, and somebody said a lot of these white women that call the cops or the principal inside of the room, especially for black boys, they have some of the same intention when white women call the cops up on black men out in public. And that's true. That's why it's important, though, too, we educate our kids, especially black boys, when they go inside of that school. When you go in there, you do your work and you listen to the teacher. And it's like this, though, too, people not going to baby you. I know sometimes, though, too, with black men are much more baby. If you go back to slavery, a lot of those attitudes, the way that black men are baby, goes back to, like I say, slavery. Black men always been the first one to get killed by the white man. So that's why a lot of black women baby black men. And it's sad to say a lot of them don't even know where they get those attitudes from. Because a lot of us live in environments, you'll see the mama treating the son like a baby and treat her daughter like she's a grown woman. Trust, I see that all the time with black women. And those things we got to stop. And black boys got to be taught, though, too, who they are. They got to be taught who they are in God. And they got to be taught their history as black men. If you teach them who they are in Christ, and if you teach them who they are in black men, you'll see black men out here just thriving. You would. Because in my opinion, the last thing we had with a black man in the last 10 years was when Obama was president. You don't see too many black men making too much history. It's all going to the women. Look at Camilla Harris. Look at the rap industry. You do. Look at our rap industry right now. Black women are taking over. You got Megan Thee Stallion. You got Cardi B. You got the City Girls, and you got that mulatto girl. They just constantly coming along. But it don't intimidate black men. It don't intimidate black men that much because they know black women rock with them. Even if a black woman got with a different race of man, you don't never see black women tearing black men down. But it's a different story when a black man is with a different race. Not all of them. You see them sometimes not as connected to the black community, or you see them disrespecting black women. And they know for a fact that black women ride for them. And black women are built different than any race of women. I think there'll always be admired women in history-making women. I think black women will always, hopefully black men step up so black women don't have to feel like they have to always step in and step up and be that backbone for the black community. And I do. I truly think one day that the black man will reemerge and start knowing himself. I think he will. I think God will put all that back in him. You just got to think slavery and white men taking control over Africa. It's just so much that took place. It just knocked the black man's mind out. And it's sad to see a lot of young black boys, though, too, unmotivated. I read up online the other day. They said you got a total of almost 83% of young black teenage boys without a job. And a lot of that, though, too, has to do with not being motivated. And a lot of that has to do, though, too, when they go to jobs, you have these white managers sometimes that won't hire them. But in the midst, you still got a lot of jobs out there that they will hire them at. And sometimes you go into these jobs, you see these white boys, you do. You see so many white boys with position, and that's because, though, too, the white man gave them that job and gave them that position. Now, that's white privilege. A lot of white people don't know what white privilege is, but that's white privilege. They don't. And white privilege don't mean that you're rich. White privilege means you can walk outside and not be stereotyped. You can jog around in your neighborhood and not have the cops called up on you. You can also, too, walk in the grocery store and not have cops called up on you. And you can go up to the job and get the job because of the white managers there. A lot of them don't comprehend what white privilege is, but it is white privilege. And a lot of whites have what they have, though, too, to a certain extent. If you go back in time, some of them still live off that slave money and land that was built up off of slavery. A lot of them don't realize that. And you got millions and millions of poor white folks in America. That is 125% true. You do. But it's sad to say some of them act like they're better than you too. But we just got to continue to educate ourselves and get this colorized brain up out of our mind. Because when they brought us over here, they took our God away, religion. They took everything away from us. The history of ourselves, you name it, they took it away and they gave us brand new identities. And I still think to this day we struggle with that stuff. I was reading up online, though, too. It said when our ancestors arrived over here in America, they was depressed. Half of them couldn't eat. Half of them